Welcome everyone to Punish for Protecting and CPS News Network. Thank you so much to Danny for allowing us to use this venue, as well as my venue, Punish for Protecting News, and YouTube, Punished No More and Free to Protect. On the screen, you see my best-selling book, Punish for Protecting, The Injustice System of Family Court. You can get your copy at Amazon. Also, within the description, anyone that needs help, there is a link on there to book a talk, and we are here to help you, as well as the YouTube channel if you're not watching on YouTube, and the other channels that you can view these stories as they come live. So thank you for joining. Thank you very much for joining today, and welcome. I am your host, Francesca Amato. I am a national advocate with expert background in Americans with Disability Act, domestic violence, and unfortunately, child abuse. And child abuse comes from, as far as I'm concerned, with over 14 years experience, child abuse comes from the family court and CPS, which I call Child Predator Services or Child Pedophilia Services. If you've watched my work, you will see how I have exposed this system for a number of years. I want to see it abolished. I want to see it taken down completely. There is no need for it. It has done nothing but endanger the lives of children and destroyed perfectly beautiful families. When children are in danger, they leave them in danger. When they're not in danger, judges place them into danger. And we can get into all the social science research. We can get into all the stats, which I've proven through their own admittance, through their own statistics. It is easy to prove that over 88% of children, by their own admittance, are trafficked through the foster care system. Who makes the orders, guys? Family court judges make the orders. So they're who is to blame. And when someone is an abuser, they're getting unfettered access to children. Today, I have a beautiful, beautiful family. And I actually, this is a recent story right now on baby Cyrus. Here's a picture of the mother and father. They will not be telling their story today. And why? They've been gagged. So instead, so grateful to have their amazing grandfather, which I know Danny has been showing a lot of his speeches and so on. Deigo Rodrigues is with us today. So spread this like wildfire so everybody can hear this story today. You can see this is a beautiful family. We're going to get the whole story today. And we also have Serra Frank. She is an advocate. She's been an advocate for a number of years. I've learned a lot actually from her through for the foundation that she started. And I am grateful to have her come out today and tell, the story, because she actually was able to court watch, and she is a family advocate for a number of years. She'll tell us more. And she founded Fight for Lilly Foundation. So without further ado, I am going to bring my groups in today. Sorry for that. I think we have a wrong banner up right now. I'm going to bring my two guests out today, Serra Frank and Deigo. So let me just pull them onto the stream. I have Serra and I have Deigo Rodrigues, which is the grandfather of little Cyrus. Now, Serra, did you not have a camera? I do have your photo up today.
Yeah, my camera's not working today.
That's
but
fine.
Thanks for having
We got
me.
a nice picture of you, a beautiful picture of you. So thank you guys both for being here. Thank you so much for being here today to tell this story. If you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead with Serra, because Serra, you court observed this, and then I'm going to get into Grandpa. Everybody's dying to hear from Grandpa. So Serra, go right ahead. Give us a little foundation. Tell us a little bit about yourself and then what you observed in court, if you don't mind.
Well, yes, I'm Serra Frank, and I'm with the Fight for Lilly. I've been a family advocate for almost a decade now, and I have helped dozens, if not hundreds, of families across the country to navigate the corrupt child welfare system and the corrupt CPS system. And child welfare courts. I've court observed. I've been kicked out of many courtrooms. I've been yelled at by social workers and judges and attorneys, but I've also been told that I'm right by social workers and judges and attorneys. So I continue to do what I do, and I help parents to navigate, typically without an attorney, help to get their voice heard in court when it's not being heard. Typically, I end up in these cases, a couple years into the case, not right at the beginning. I've had the fortunate chance of being a part of this case from the very beginning, from the day after baby Cyrus was taken. And I met with the family, and I've learned a lot. And unfortunately, there was no observing court in this matter because they closed the court immediately due to the extreme publicity that this case got right away. This family was very fortunate to have such a great support system and have such great publicity due to their connections to local activists, political activists in Idaho, which I believe was a key factor to bringing the baby home and having the department want to negotiate to bring the baby home. The foundation for the story is that this is a very young family. This is 21 and 22-year-old Marissa and Levi, and their 10-month-old baby Cyrus. And Cyrus was doing very, very well up until about 7 months old, when he started to have extreme vomiting and constipation and problems with digestion. And this young family did what every family does and sought out medical attention. And because of that, St. Luke's Children's Hospital and Child Protective Services grabbed hold and tried to run with it. But luckily, the publicity, I believe, is what brought him home.
Oh yeah, I believe so, and I believe also Ammon Bundy was part of this. I believe he was supposed to join us today, but I don't see him in the queue. So we'll see if he, shows up. Oh, actually, I think we just got him. No, we did not. No, we did not. Not yet. Okay, but we don't have him today. But can you talk a little bit about that, because he got in there and he started doing protests, and
yes,
do you believe that had something to do with it, or?
I believe that had everything to do with it. So when I'm working with families, I present a way of fighting that I called the sword and the shield method. And you use your sword, which is the court system and your constitutional rights and everything that our founding fathers laid out to protect us from a corrupt government. And then you use your shield, which is public awareness. And that's, calling out social workers, making sure people know the story, spreading it everywhere. And fortunately, this family was connected to Ammon Bundy in Idaho, who is a very well-known political activist. He's currently running for governor of Idaho. And he has made waves across the state through the news, through his standing up for the mask mandates and the vaccines and everything with COVID. And prior to that, through Oregon and Nevada and different court cases where he fought back against what he viewed as government corruption. And I've followed Ammon for a while, mainly because I'm nosy, and I enjoy watching people fight back against corruption. And I actually heard about this case from his governor campaign, candidacy campaign. And that's when I reached out to another local activist, Robert Jones in Idaho, and he connected me with the family. And it just went on from there. And I have to say, it was Ammon and his publicity and his constant protesting and all of his followers through, I believe, the group People's Rights, that really made an impact in bringing Cyrus home before the hearing, before the adjudicatory hearing. Of course, so the family attended the shelter care hearing a few days after Cyrus was taken. And we call these hearsay hearings for a reason, because this is the only court in the country where hearsay is allowed. It's the only court hearing, and it's not allowed at the adjudicatory hearing. In some states, that's called a fact and finding hearing, where the rules of evidence do apply. But at the shelter care hearings, evidence doesn't matter. Hearsay is enough to keep a child out of their home. And in this case, the parents were gagged at the shelter care hearing. They had to sign papers saying they would not talk about the details of the case, which is what brings us to be talking about it for them. To make sure the story is out there. And right after the shelter care hearing. From my understanding, the social workers approached the family, dangled little baby Cyrus in front of their face like they do in all, so many different cases, and said, here, sign this and you can take your baby home. So safety plan was signed. Fortunately, in this case, there are good attorneys working on it, and I believe that it was in baby Cyrus's best interest for that safety plan to be signed just so that he could go home to his family. Not to give CPS control, of course, but to make sure Cyrus is home with his mother where he belongs.
And I absolutely 100%, oh my goodness, I think I just removed you. Did not want to remove you. Okay. Did I? I think I removed her by accident from the stream. I need to bring her back on. I'm so sorry about that. I removed you from the stream trying to get us back all together here because I had you on the full screen. So forgive me, everybody. A couple of things I want to say. First of all, we have people joining from all over the world. Okay, we have people joining from the UK, Israel. People saying that this is happening all over the globe. This is in fact happening all over the globe. Sorry. Sarah, I totally appreciate you. I just adore you. I learned a lot from you over the years as well. I appreciate you so much. I'm so thankful that you are a part of this case. We can both verify, we can both confirm the fact that, yes, this is happening all over the globe. We throw around the word and we say this all the time that there's no due process. There's no due process, and they make fun of people for saying this. There is no due process in this. You don't just take somebody's children and then ask questions later. It is absolutely despicable that what they're doing, how they're harming families. Social science research has clearly proven that this harms children for the rest of their lives. It takes from their lives. It actually shortens their lifespan when you remove them from primary fit caretakers, such as this family. So again, I appreciate you so much because we need more of us out there doing this kind of work, helping families. And I'm sure that this family is very grateful to have you, and we're all thankful because you're 100% right. They don't return children like this. They do not return children like this. I can confirm that. I do this all over the country. I court watch these psycho judges all over the country. They do not return children, and when they do, they're so crooked and evil. They know how to slip like a snake, slither like a snake, how to slither in and slither out, so to speak. So they've gagged this family basically, or this mother and father. They've, they do everything they can to hide their dirty work, and we know why. I'm going to go ahead and bring in right now. I just got to try to just bear with me. I'm going to bring in Deigo. Make sure I have you here on the screen. Do I have you here? Yes, there you are. And I'd like to first thank you and welcome you and hear from you. Everybody's dying to hear from you, Grandpa. You have literally made national and I believe worldwide attention with what you're doing. People are very proud of you. I'm very proud of you. Go ahead and take the floor.
Sure. So where do you want me to start? There's so much to start about. I don't know how, where exactly people know. But first, I just want to say thank you for letting us be here on the show and publicize this more to a greater audience. Everybody needs to know what's going on. We've gotten a crash course in this in the last 10 days or so. And I am reluctant to, not reluctant, but, I regret having to admit that I was just as ignorant to the evil and wickedness of all that is going on in the CPS system and, the family court system and these judges. And I just didn't know until this happened to us. And now, of course, we've gotten a crash course on it in the last 10 days, and people absolutely need to know. I equate this with the greatest evil of our time. If you look back at American history, we're not proud of a lot of things that took place in American history, from slavery to racial segregation to currently abortion. This is just as high as all those in terms of the wickedness that is going on in our country, that we're not just allowing it, we are subsidizing it. In fact, the federal government and our government is responsible for this because they subsidize this taking of children from their parents and putting them into the foster care system. And it's not just taking these children. This is true child trafficking by definition. This is absolute child trafficking by definition. And I would define child trafficking as the taking of children from their family and putting them in the hands of others for profit. And I would say the taking of children by force, because this happens at the point of a gun. And I would challenge anybody to give me a different definition of child trafficking. That is what child trafficking is, and that is what this is. And the people receiving the money are state governments, and the people giving the money is the United States federal government. That means that you and I, with our tax dollars, are subsidizing this. It's absolutely disgusting.
You're 100% right, and they're doing it to us. In other words, not by our choice. They're taking it through the tax dollars. It's federal funding, and I'm amazed at you right now because, like you just got done saying, you literally got thrown in this. It's only been 10 days. 10 days you had to say, and your grandson, thank God, is with mom and dad. They look like such a beautiful family, honestly. Such a beautiful family. Can you, I've seen, most of the people, let's say a high percentage of the people realize just how sick this is. They realize this is sick, but you do have your, I call them the silly ones that are out there that I'm actually surprised because I've been trumping this message for a long time, but that think, oh, families must have done something wrong. All right. And I would love to hear from you because you said you were ignorant to what's happening and, you've had to learn and do a crash course. But this family didn't do anything wrong. They're a beautiful family. You can tell just by looking at them. I mean, talk about that. Touch on that.
So I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. One of the horrible things that we've learned since this time is just how groomed American society has become to accept anything law
that's the word. Groomed. Go ahead.
Anything and everything that, we're just the most propagandized culture on planet Earth. Americans tend to think that we know everything and that we're the smartest and that we're the purest and we're the greatest. And it's just because of propaganda. There is no propaganda machine that works in collaboration like what we have in America between Hollywood, public education, the news media. It's always selling the same message. And it's ridiculous that it's this message that's contrary to the founding of this country, which is a message of statism. Not necessarily socialism, but statism. And statism, in short, is the religion of the state, where the people worship the state. The state is all powerful, has all control. And when I say state, I don't mean individual states like Idaho, Texas, New York, or California. I mean the state as in government. And so that's what we call the state. And so we believe that the state is altruistic, that they're all-knowing, that they are here to take care of you and that they don't cause any damage, that they would never take a child away if that child was not in utter danger. There's just no way police officers would ever do something wrong, would ever harm anybody. They're just there to protect us. There's no way our military would ever get involved in anything that is not 100% where we're the good guys. We're always the good guys. And this is the problem that the average person has. The average person who's gone to public school, who watches mainstream media, who absorbs Hollywood, they just assume this to be so because they have literally been groomed their entire life to believe that narrative. So when you see something happen to what typically appears to be a typical all-American family, like my daughter and my son-in-law, a beautiful young couple, beautiful young family, they're a Christian family. They were both raised as homeschool children. My daughter is one of 5. Levi is one of 11. So they both were raised in Christian homes, going to church, homeschooled their whole lives. They're as pure and clean as any couple you'll ever find in your entire life. And yes, I'm biased when I say that, but I would challenge anybody. Sarah met them. She can tell you, she can vouch for that as well. These are pure, young, innocent children. And the assumption has to be, well, they would never take a child away from parents unless those parents were just torturing that child and abusing him and harming him. And nothing could be further from the truth. And what I've learned in the last 10 days is not only is that not the case, but if there is a parent abusing a child, physically harming a child, giving drugs to the child, exposing the children to pornography, to filth, to drugs, those children stay with their parents. The system doesn't do anything to those people, but it's the innocent ones, the ones who haven't done anything wrong. They're the ones who are destroyed. They're the ones who are attacked. They're the ones who are, I would even say, targeted. And so, no, Levi and Marissa have done absolutely nothing. And the charge against them, for those who've been paying attention to the case, was essentially twofold. It started with, number one, that baby Cyrus was underweight. He was underweight, and because he was underweight because he was vomiting. Therefore, it's something that they medically call a failure to thrive. And since He had a failure to thrive. There was a doctor's appointment. It was actually an appointment with a nurse practitioner. Excuse me, not a doctor. But that detail aside, they had an appointment on Friday, March 11th at 10 a.m. My daughter woke up feeling ill. Because she woke up feeling ill, the nurse, she called in to cancel the appointment, and that is what triggered everything. She canceled the appointment, and so the nurse practitioner, who I'm assuming now has some direct connection to CPS, literally called CPS Francesca within 20 minutes after the original scheduled appointment. The original scheduled appointment is 10 a.m. He called CPS at 10:20. We have the medical records. We have the timestamps. It was 20 minutes later, he called CPS. CPS calls the cops. The cops are at my door, an hour later.
So,
and what's really interesting about this case is that this was the very first missed appointment for an underweight baby, but the doctor had just seen him not even 24 hours before that. And two other doctors saw him that week as well. Plus, he had been in the ER before that. These parents were doing everything possible that their young little family knew to do. Reach out, seek out help from medical professionals. And the moment that they missed one appointment without any warning at all from doctors saying, hey, if you miss an appointment, this could happen. This is how dire the situation is. You need to make sure you make every single appointment. And then when you look at the medical records, this nurse practitioner is saying, well, it was important to call CPS because of the failure to make the weigh-in appointments like they had done this before. The way he words it is like they had missed more than one appointment, but they had missed one. And 20 minutes later, yes, he calls CPS. And he also claims it's because he's a mandated reporter, which, Francesca, you and I know about mandated reporting and how they will just grab onto it.
Yeah, we've learned now in the state of Idaho that the law in the state of Idaho is that every single citizen in Idaho is a mandatory reporter. So that's a whole bunch of BS what he's talking about right there. So, the kid on the street corner is a mandatory reporter. The grocery clerk is a mandatory reporter in Idaho. It's not one of those states like, I used to live in California and I was a pastor there. And as a pastor, I was a mandatory reporter. And teachers are mandatory reporters, et cetera. So here everybody is. And it's a BS claim. The news has claimed that they missed 3 appointments. He said, just like Sarah just described, appointments plural, and it's all a lie. But I would consider, or not, I would argue, what if they missed every single appointment? Who cares? It's their child. He is not property of the state. Now, they weren't doing that. They weren't doing that at all. They were going to every single one, but it's not the state's prerogative to rip families apart simply because they want to. And in this case, the reason why they want to is because they get paid to do so. This is the question that I have found in a short time that just diffuses people who are what I call fact deniers. They just deny the facts of any case because they want to believe the state narrative. And the reason why I believe people want to do that is it's human nature. If you can't reject this, then you are naturally going to feel culpable and you're going to feel the need to do something about it. If you know, for example, that somebody next door to you is doing some evil crime, that they're cutting off the heads of dolphins, and as long as well, I don't believe that that's happening, then you don't have to do anything about it. But if you find out that this is going on next door, then you have to do something about it. So if what we're talking about is real and people recognize it to be real, then they're instantly, just because you're humans, you're going to feel like, I can't let this go on. I have to do something about it. So it's just way easier for most people to go, no, nothing to see here. I don't see this. I don't hear this, because then there is no responsibility on their hearts or their souls or their conscience to do something about it. And this is why people just naturally want to reject it. That's why I call them fact deniers. They do not want to believe that these facts are true. And so they're going to just jump on any false narrative possible in order to alleviate themselves of the responsibility to have to take action to do something about it. So in Levi and Marissa's case, after the police came to visit me at my house and Marissa and Levi and the baby were not here, they then put out a BOLO, which is a be on the lookout for them. And so later that evening, they found us all leaving a dinner at a friend's house and pulled Levi over, detained him. And at that point, it just went from bad to worse. They called in over 20 cops. They were all there. And what made this a big, big difference than I think most cases was multiple things. And in retrospect, we believe and know that God was orchestrating this as we went down the path. But the big thing was that we were all there with cameras, and my daughter Marissa specifically live streamed the entire thing. And so she had the record of the live stream. There's many people with cameras all the way around. And so as soon as this was, this tragedy was taking place, we had the video of this, and people could see how these police officers were acting like complete belligerent thugs. They rip Levi out of the truck, throw him up against the truck, handcuff him, take him away. My other daughter, who was in the truck with him, they falsely arrested her. They're yelling at her, get your ASS out of the car. Just no de-escalation. Opposite. They're acting like complete unhinged maniacs. And again, everybody wants to believe that police are all, wonderful people, and they would never do anything wrong, and they never do anything wrong. They don't abuse people. They don't abuse their power. None of them are tyrants. And I'm not saying that they all are. Don't hear me wrong. I'm not using the other extreme. But I'm telling you that these there that night were, however many of them were, there was, I would say 15 to 20, maybe more. They were absolute belligerent tyrants and thugs, and they abused my family before my very eyes. I had to stand there and watch as my son-in-law was attacked, as my two daughters were physically assaulted, literally physically assaulted. You can watch the video yourself. They took my second daughter, my daughter Marissa, who's the mother here, and you can watch the video. It's so disgusting. They literally pat her down after already having been pat down, which they say they have to do for safety purposes to make sure she doesn't have any weapons on her. Then after they've ripped the baby out of her hands by lying to her and manipulating her in order to do so, they then have her in handcuffs, and some perverted, disgusting cop pats her whole body down, puts his hand up her blouse, his hands down her pants, and it's all caught on video. These are the things that people saw. They saw how they lied to her, how they falsely arrested my other daughter, who was sitting in the front seat, accused her of felony injury to a child, and then accused her of falsifying information to a police officer. They put her under arrest for that because she said, "That's not my child." And it wasn't her child, but these incompetent buffoons were just so high on adrenaline and evil that they did it anyhow and arrested both of my daughters, and everybody could see it with their own two eyes. And this is the power of recording things, because as you and I know, had this stuff not been recorded, who's going to believe the family? They're just going to believe whatever the cops say because they want to. They've been groomed to. And if they don't believe that, then there's going to be responsibility on them to do something about it. And nobody wants that responsibility. So they want to believe the cops. They want to believe the police officers, but the video doesn't allow it. And I think, Francesca...
So hold on one second. I just want to, for the sake of sound, Ammon Bundy has just joined us. And I don't want to interrupt you, but he has if I can bring him out as well. And everybody needs to mute when you're not speaking, because what it does is it affects the sound out there for everybody who can hear. So in a moment, I'm going to bring you in, Ammon. Thank you so much for also being here. I just want Diego to finish his thought there. Go ahead.
So the big question then, of course, is how do we get our baby back so fast? And so this is where Ammon comes in. So at that point, they steal the baby. They've kidnapped him. Ammon is a personal family friend of ours. And so Ammon, a lot of people are saying, well, hey, look, Ammon's just trying to get attention, and because there was a gubernatorial campaign. These people are so ignorant; they have no clue. Ammon was literally there the day baby Cyrus was born. You can see pictures of Ammon holding baby Cyrus on day one. I mean, he's a close family friend of ours, and so our family is to his family like his is to ours. And at that moment, my wife and several people are on the phone calling everybody and telling everybody, and Ammon learns about this. Someone's on the phone with him. I don't know who specifically it was. He can tell you in a minute. But they let him know that baby Cyrus was kidnapped by the police, and they're taking him to the hospital. And so he went down to the hospital. While he was going down to the hospital, I went down to the jail to bail out my two daughters. Imagine, I had to watch them abuse my daughters, and then we have to go pay them to let them out. So while I'm going over there, Ammon heads over to the police department, to the hospital. And when he goes to the hospital, many additional members of the People's Rights Network, which is a network that Ammon founded, and he can tell you about that, were also there. And so I don't know how many there were there, a half a dozen or so, maybe a little more, of people who were out in front of the hospital protesting, saying, you guys just kidnapped baby Cyrus. You just brought him here. This is wrong. And you can watch the video of this as well, because this was also captured on video, where they didn't tell Ammon to leave. They didn't tell him, get off the property. They didn't tell him you're not welcome here. They said none of that. They just walked right up to him, put him in cuffs, and said, you're under arrest for trespassing. And he can tell you the story, but it's completely, we have it all on film. And as much as it was a horrible thing, I have to say, in many ways, it was the best thing that could have happened in terms of publicity, because had this just happened to us, we would have been fighting to get publicity. Had Ammon been involved, he would have been publicizing it, and that would have been that. So he'd has, you know, his list and his network of people that are around him, our list, and we'd be publicizing. We'd be trying hard to get as much publicity. We'd get some, but nowhere near the traction as when he got arrested. Even though it was totally under false pretenses, it was a false arrest. He's got an incredible case. I'm sure he'll sue the socks off of him and win, because it'd be impossible not to, since we have the video evidence. But because he got arrested, it became national and then international news literally overnight. Because then it was, you know, gubernatorial candidate Ammon Bundy is arrested, and that was the headline. And then when you get into the news, it's because he was trying to save and help this child, this 10-month-old child who was medically kidnapped. And that news launched the entire process. And then, of course, the next day, we were protesting in front of the hospital. Literally the next day, you know, baby Cyrus was kidnapped about midnight on Friday night. And the next day at 10 a.m., there was 400 plus people in front of that hospital protesting. And we kept those protests going every single day. You said you watched some press conferences. Ammon advised me to do a press conference every single day. It's something that they learned to do down in Nevada. I said, it sounds like a great idea. So we started doing that. And every day we'd give updates with new information that we had, additional evidence that was brought forth. We'd share it with everybody. And by the time they had the shelter care hearing, I don't have to tell you, the average person is clueless, but I don't have to tell you that those shelter care hearings, it's a dog and pony show. None of it is real. It's a rubber stamp. Boom, 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 boom. Bring the kid in, rubber stamp. You're a CPS. Parents are terrible, and this is what we're going to do. And people assume a judge would never award custody to the state unless the parents did something horrible, because they're ignorant of the fact that these judges are corrupt. They're psychopathic, as you described. I believe they're 100% wicked. They're there on purpose. We also are learning that they are paid separately for those shelter care hearings outside of their regular state job, meaning, yes, they're a judge, and yes, they're getting paid by the state to do what they do as judges and judging normal cases, but specifically for CPS cases, they are acting basically as judges working for a private entity behind the scenes in that moment, getting paid by a private corporation connected to the state that is not actually the government. It's an entire kangaroo court. It's a dog and pony show, and it's just a rubber stamp, because in that process, everybody gets paid. The state gets paid, the Department of Health and Welfare gets paid, CPS gets paid, the foster care family gets paid, everybody gets paid, and the family is destroyed, ripped apart, and these children are exposed to great danger. So the shelter care hearing took place. Everybody learned about it nationwide, and people couldn't believe it. We had people praying and fasting everywhere. It was devastating. However, we know for a fact, because they've literally told us, and they've published it in their own internal communique that we have received, that the protests, the emails, the phone calls, the negative public backlash was so intense that we disturbed their lives to such a degree that they wanted this to stop. We cannot have this any longer. And so that is when they decided to give baby Cyrus back for that very reason. And they had to sign a safety plan. But as Sarah will tell you, she warned us, and everybody warned us up front, never sign a safety plan, never sign a safety plan. And that's great advice for, I would say, all cases. In this particular case, the safety plan was simply their bureaucratic process they had to go through to get baby Cyrus back. But we had a CPS lawyer. They're looking at it, and he said they rewrote it for them. Said it's the most lenient safety plan they have ever seen. And, Marissa and Levi, fortunately, they don't have to have any of those classes. All the classes that people typically have to take, they don't have any of that. They haven't had a tremendous amount of CPS intrusion. They are, CPS is legally allowed to intrude, but everybody's terrified. Baby Cyrus became the hot potato. Nobody wants him. The hospital's like, get rid of him. We don't want him. Department of Health and Welfare, we don't want him. Social workers, please get this kid away. He turned into the hot potato, and nobody wants him.
I'm laughing because that's what we do. We get them to the point where we drive them so crazy that they want us away from them. Like, get rid of these people, send them back. We don't want the attention. We don't want this or that. I want to bring Ammon on. Everybody's waiting to hear from you too. So thank you so much for being on our show today, Ammon. Let me give you the screen here. We'd like to hear from you. Ammon Bundy, everybody. He's also a gubernatorial candidate for Idaho governor. Man, if I lived there, I'd vote for you. Can I bring you over here to New York? Because we need you here. And a people's rights advocate. Ammon, go ahead. Floor is yours.
Well, I don't know what you want me to say. I just want to be a second witness to what Diego is just expressing here. He articulates it a lot better than me, and it's very tangible. It's a very tangible thing that's happening, and It's got to the level of where the state actually believes they can take children away from parents who love them, who care for them, who, in no way abuse them or neglect them, who just simply love them and ultimately disagree with the state's intrusion in their life. Um, you know, I I missed the first part of this. I was actually on a hearing with the court. They're just nonstop prosecuting me here in Idaho, which is just par for the course, and that's fine to go. But that's where I was at, and so I apologize for being late. But
Oh, you're fine.
we have, here, mother and father just simply go to the hospital, and I know Diego probably went into a lot more detail, and that's good. But they go to the hospital, which, by the way, is a very, very dangerous thing for anybody to do now with children, especially with children. The state believes that they, can just take children if you don't comply to a doctor's recommendation or whatever they do. And they finally get him out of the hospital. The doctor orders a weigh-in through CPS, and after several weigh-ins, Marissa, the mother, doesn't feel well. Friday morning, calls in, says they're not going to make it to the weigh-in, and now somehow that's justification for the state to take a child. We're in a precarious, very terrible situation here in this country, and it's become very tangible, and it should affect everybody. So, I mean, I don't know what you want me to go into. I just simply love Diego and his family. I've known, Cyrus since he first came into this world, but I certainly see that these atrocities are happening to a lot of people. It just happened to happen very close to home. And I hope people see the example of how to peacefully correct these problems. And I could just, we could go through what we went through, go through the processes that we went through, but this is something that people's rights and anybody who's been successful at protecting rights have had to go through. So I don't know exactly what you want to talk about here and what Diego's covered.
I wanted to bring all of you together on this forum today for multiple reasons. Okay. We all have faith in Jesus Christ. We're all Christians. Okay. We need to subdue this earth. I want you guys to know that I'm supporting you 100%, 1000%. I've been doing this for over 14 years. I suffered myself. My son suffered. They tried to gag me. I have a book out. I have another book coming out exposing a Judge McGinty in Ulster County. I do this. I court watch judges all over the country. Okay. A case like this that's getting this kind of attention, I want to jump on because I want to get more attention, more people to wake up. And I see that the majority, not all, the majority of families are Christians. This is persecution. The Bible's clear. It said it's going to happen. We just didn't know that this was the route. I believe it is child trafficking on steroids. I always have. I've exposed it. Right now, tomorrow, we're going to have a group on here showing the children that are coming in through the border. You guys definitely want to tune into that one. And they're saving them and protecting them from the cartel. But this is the cartel. Family court is the cartel.
Sure.
CPS is the cartel. So you guys are my brothers and sisters in Christ. I want us together. You're in Idaho right now. I have a lot of families in Idaho. I have a mother that's hiding in Idaho, or I don't know where she's hiding, but she's hiding because of another judge in Idaho. We need to bring her story out, Sarah Stanley and her son, River. They need to be protected and saved. Their life is now in hiding. That's a horrible thing. No one should live like that. We weren't put here to live like that. And so whatever we can all do together, put our faith together, ignite our faith together, pray together, fast together, fight for this, because this is a very horrifically demonic system. Okay. The enemy is showing himself more and more bold. He doesn't care to hide anymore. My goal is to see Christians repent. We need to repent as the body because the Bible's clear. It says, first the church, first us. We are the church, first us, then the world. And I do believe the Lord has shown me a lot of different things because, yes, we fight in the physical. We fight with our logic. We fight with our wisdom. We fight with legal terms. We fight all these different ways, but we must repent as the body. And God is bringing us together. We have authority over this. We have authority over all of them. I don't believe that a lot of them are human. I can show you by scripture. Even Jesus said of Judas that he was a devil. Okay. They look like human. They look human, these judges. I've court watched way too many to believe they are. I'm not saying they're all not.
Really quick, there's two things I want to say about what you just said there. The first thing, of course, is you said that this is child trafficking on steroids. I couldn't agree more. And I want to use that term over and over and over again, child trafficking. I like to use it on steroids. But why is it on steroids? I believe the answer to that question is because of the money. Because the source of the money is essentially infinite. It's limitless. It is the federal government. And what we have since learned in these last 10, 11 days is that most states cannot even balance their budgets without this money. And that secretly, most of these states literally have, get ready to throw up, a quota for how many children they have to steal from their families in order to get enough money to balance their budgets. And so they are incentivized. Every state is financially incentivized in order to steal and kidnap children, regardless of who the children are. Literally, this is what's going on in our country. In the state of Idaho, which is one of the smallest states population-wise, you're in New York, one of the largest. We're in Idaho, one of the smallest. 4 children a day have this happen to them in the state of Idaho alone. Every single day this is happening. It's 1,400 children every single year in our state. And it's absolutely disgusting. So this is what's causing it. And so the next question is, well, why? So we got the money. We understand the money of child trafficking. But why? You mentioned earlier, you said this is happening so often to Christian families and the godly people, et cetera. Why? So in looking at this is one of the things that people, again, have a hard time imagining, and they don't want to have to believe it. But you have to ask yourself the question, what type of person is attracted to a job that gives you power over Christian families to destroy them? Who wants to have that job? You would think that if this type of institution had to exist, CPS, if it had to exist for whatever reason, and there were, good godly people determining who's going to be over these departments, you would say, well, before someone is going to insert themselves into the lives of families, maybe we should find somebody with some empathy. Maybe we should find mothers who have families themselves, who have children, who have grandchildren, so they understand the complexity of a family environment. They understand the emotional connection of a mother and a father to their own child. Maybe people should be family oriented themselves. There should be somebody who can relate. That's who social workers should be. But guess who social workers are? Most of them are not married. They've never been married, have no children, have no family background, or have abusive backgrounds themselves. An enormously huge percentage of them are lesbians. Most of them are atheists. So think about the fact that the vast majority of people who have been given power by the state over Christian families are atheistic, left-wing lesbians. Literally. So we have literally given power to our enemies to have state control over the lives of Christian families. And so people are like, I don't know, because when you tell someone, and you know it as best as anybody, having the history that you have and the experience you have, that children who are in legitimate danger, people who are in true danger, children who are being abused, don't get taken by CPS. They leave them in the hands of their abusers. And that's what the system was supposed to be there for. So you'd say, if you're a social worker and you're prioritizing cases, and you're a police officer and you get these calls and you're supposed to be prioritizing cases, why are they going to destroy Christian families? Why are they going out to destroy perfectly clean Christian families, and these other families, nothing happens to them?
And I'm going to jump in here right now and answer that question for Deigo. We were talking earlier, both Ammon and Deigo have had a crash course in CPS corruption. Francesca and I have been doing this for a decade or more. And what we've learned is that, the public is so deceived by this, thinking that child protection is done truly in the best interest of the child, that it's unbelievable to them until it hits home. Just like with Ammon and Deigo, it hit home a week and a half ago. Before that, you probably didn't even think about it, because we are so programmed to believe that child protection or child protective services is actually protecting children. And to answer your question, why are they not going after these abused children? It's because those abused children do not make them any money. It is the white, young babies that are adoptable foster parents do not want to adopt children who are abused because those children have psychological problems, and it causes problems for the family. And then those children, if they are taken into the system, are bumped around from family to family and family until they age out of the system. And then they likely end up homeless as street kids or in prison. And the good majority of the people on death row came or were foster children. These statistics, it's for the public to see what is truly going on. It is all of these things that encompass this corruption and that need to be exposed. And it's so great, Ammon and Deigo just, I kind of laughed. First, I was completely horrified, of course, when I read Ammon's text about what had happened. And then I kind of had to laugh. I'm like, oh, they're so screwed, because Ammon is so good at being in the public eye. He is so good at causing a scene to make people pay attention to what is happening. And how quickly Cyrus was returned home and how quickly they just wanted to get rid of this hot potato just proved that the sword and the shield method do work. Using the criminal justice system, using the court system the way it was designed, and forcing them to have evidence is how you fight back. But public awareness, public scrutiny of public officials, that's everything. I have gotten into so many arguments on social media about how it's not good to be calling out these public officials by name, by address, by protesting in front of their homes and downtown. And in reality, that's what their job entails. If they are receiving taxpayer money for their job, then they are subject to public scrutiny. If they don't like it, they can go work at McDonald's, because then it would be harassment if we went to the guy at McDonald's who messed up our hamburger. If we went to his house to protest that, insult to us, it would end up being harassment charges by the police. But these public officials accept public funds, and St. Luke's Children's Hospital is technically a public official because they've received Department of Justice funds. And these, Francesca knows, it's not all hospitals. It's the children's hospital networks. Every time I deal with a medical kidnap case, it's coming from a children's hospital, whether that's the Children's Hospital of Seattle, of Tacoma, of Boise, which is St. Luke's, or Vanderbilt in Tennessee with a horrible case from many years ago where a baby was pulled off life support while the parents were trying to appeal. This evil is in every state, in every country across our globe. And what they don't realize is that as they do this to these families, as they steal these children and traumatize these families and try to rip them apart, they are leaving an army of parents and grandparents and biological families and pissed off Christians in their wake who are going to rise up against them. And that is what I see happening here with people like Ammon and Deigo getting involved. It's finally becoming truth. It's finally being exposed to the public, to the people who need to hear it. And I thank both of them for being so involved and standing up for their family. I appreciate you both.
Likewise,
I thank all three of you. I'm utterly impressed. I'm grateful. I'm thankful to God because I've been praying for this for a long time. I'm thankful for the viewing audience. I'm seeing all the comments. There's not one person that disagrees. There's not one person that disagrees. I mean, look at the comments as they're coming through. I agree with everything. I feel that I'm thankful that we have social media because we can bring people together. We can get this word out. We can get this message out. I do want to also say, my organization, Punish for Protecting, we can help you. A matter of fact, we specialize in convoluted cases, and they're all convoluted cases. So, you can actually, if you do need help, it's in the link. You can look in the link. I wrote the book, Punish for Protecting the Injustice System of Family Court. It's even, I'm on the second book I'm writing has way more information because more has happened. We realized we couldn't reform this because you wouldn't reform Hitler. You wouldn't reform Satan. We have to take it down. It is indeed child trafficking by their own admittance, in their own statistics. It's child trafficking. Child trafficking or family trafficking or human trafficking is moving a body from one place to another against their will. It's not just sexual, but although it is sexual, I mean, children are being sexually abused. They're being sexually abused. They're being placed with abusers. And and they're being forced into abuse, and innocent, good mothers and fathers, majority of them are mothers, whether you want to believe it or not, that is the truth, are being stripped away from their children and being told they cannot protect them. They're all being told the same story. It's the same story. You're either delusional, you have some kind of an unchecked mental illness that that some CPS worker with a third grade education, no medical background whatsoever, no clinical background whatsoever, in that field, is telling these people that they have, or judges are saying it when they have no authority to do so, or it's the same thing. They're crazy. That's what a bully would say. A bully would say, "You're crazy. I didn't do anything." Well, the courts do it in a more sophisticated way, saying that you have unchecked mental illness. Okay, unchecked mental illness. You have, undiagnosed mental illness. Like, where do they come off saying that? And I'm also an Americans with Disability Act expert advocate, and I know how to protect your rights in these fake courts, because they're fake. They're fake, and I'm going to get into that a little bit. They're not real. They look real, but they're not real. And I'll tell you how very easily in a couple of sentences. They basically, what they do is, they make it, there's a judge, and then there's attorneys who tell you that you cannot practice law without a license, but they can't practice law with a license. That's not sovereign citizenship. So don't give me that nonsense. Don't give me that nonsense. Okay. Don't even put that ridiculous word together in a sentence to me. Basically, they are bar members. They are bar certified. They pay a bar membership fee to do their job. You can speak. You're not a ward of the state, although you become one when they attorn you. I'm not putting down all attorneys too, because I've known some decent ones that are really trying to fight this as well. But once you go in there, I want to know how they can take something as fundamental as your child or children. Think about this for a minute. They can't take your TV out of your house, but they can take your living, breathing child from your home without asking any questions. Just automatically, you are wrong. You just did wrong, but you did not do wrong. 99.9%, and I'm being conservative, of these cases are not wrong. These parents did not do wrong. Okay, but they'll take your children, and then we'll ask questions later, and then we'll take you to the court later, and then you'll have to fight and jump through hoops to get them back. But meanwhile, they're dying in foster care. They're being abused in foster care. They're going to non-biological people that they don't know. Just think of the trauma that these children suffer, even if they're babies, what kind of trauma they suffer by being ripped away from the people that love them and those that they love, right? Brought over to some stranger's house, and they're getting manhandled by how many different people on the way. I mean, just if anybody just wants to think of the abuse that does to children, social science research proves it. ACE, Adverse Childhood Experiences, proves it. Okay, now legal abuse syndrome is recognized. So that's legal abuse right there. That's causing you all kinds of traumas, your children all kinds of traumas, and you have protections under the ADA. Okay, you have protections. And I use that all the time. Because I'm able to protect children, and I'm able to protect their families. And I'm able to educate the attorneys that are willing to actually apply it and invoke it into the courts. So,
and Francesca, I definitely want to, emphasize the trauma that it causes these children. Ammon has known Cyrus since he was born, and I just met Cyrus right after he was returned home, and he was totally wary of me. I was a stranger. He wanted nothing to do with me. He looked away all the time. But when Ammon was there, he was happy and smiles. And I deal with that a lot with these families. When I do get to meet these children, they don't know me, and they are traumatized by strangers. They are traumatized by any stranger. And when my daughter Lilly came home, she was traumatized in the same way. She was scared every time her father put on his coat. And she was scared, deathly afraid of anybody who was over the age of 60, because her foster parents were elderly foster parents. They were 83 years old and taking care of this baby. And it all leads into those adoption incentives and foster care and adopting from foster care. And that's what I see in this case, is they saw a young, naive family, about 21 years old, 22 years old, with a brand new baby, and the baby has special needs. So Francesca, they get more money for those special needs children. But yet a baby is adoptable. A child over 6 is considered special needs because they're over the age of 6, and foster parents don't want to adopt children over the age of 6. They want babies that will call them mommy and daddy. And we know that it comes from the incentive comes from the funding. And we know that these social workers are young and naive. If they have such a high turnover rate, because most people have a heart and most people can't live it. Like Carlos Morales, who wrote the book Legally Kidnapped, the case against Child Protective Services, he outlines how little they are trained, that they are just thrown into the 6-week course and then set out onto the streets to take people's children without having any experience with children, without having any education on abuse. A lot of these social workers are just, they're taught the society part, the social work part, but they're not taught the psychology part. They're not taught.
Well, can I also, let me kind of say something about that too. Do you know what they're doing? They're playing with words, because a lot of these people are not social workers. They're not they're not licensed social workers. They didn't get that kind of master's degree training, and they're not, because the social workers that are legitimate social workers, they're under some severe scrutiny. And what they're calling them is social. They're playing with you guys. They're not legal social workers. They're not licensed. They didn't have the education. They're calling them a lot of times through CPS social case workers. So you think they're a social worker, and they don't even have their associates. And you could have no degree whatsoever and have more of a brain than what they have. But I'm just saying, like, that you don't have to have a master's or a bachelor's to be an intelligent, moral human being. I'm not saying Jesus didn't have any of those things, right? But in reality, they're not even that. So I know a lot of amazing social workers that despise what's happening. And of course, then there's some that work for this demonic system, and they are doing exactly what you're saying, Sarah. I want to just put this out to the audience right now. If you guys want to ask some questions to Sarah, to Ammon, or to Deigo, please do that now. And any of them that I see, I'll put it up for one of them to respond, because we have only a few minutes of this live. To end this live. But we all want to say one thing. We are very grateful that baby Cyrus is home. Everybody is so happy about that. So I'm going to be looking into the.
I do want to just remind everybody again, we thank you so much for your prayers, and we thank you so much for your support, and for people have donated to the cause. People have been praying, they've been fasting, and we need that to continue, all of it. In order to take this all the way. On April 8th is the adjudicatory hearing. So yes, we have baby Cyrus right now. Yes, we have lots of confidence that God will give us a victory, but we can't just give up. We can't just give up now and say, okay, he's back, everything's fine. That baby Cyrus is right now, according to the judge, the legal property of the state of Idaho, who's just in the care of his parents. That's how disgusting this is. You ladies understand that, but the average viewer doesn't understand that. This is the way that this is viewed legally. On April 8th, either one of basically three things will happen. The whole case will be dismissed. That's it. It's over. Boom. Okay, fantastic. God bless America. Let's get out of here. Let's get back home and get back to our normal lives. Of course, we'll never get back to our normal lives completely, because we're going to be fighting this forever. And by that, I mean just fighting the issue altogether, not necessarily baby Cyrus. That's one option. Option number two is that they say, okay, we're going to keep things as they are right now, and you guys can still have care over baby Cyrus, but he's still the property of the state of Idaho, and you still are going to be watched by us, and still have to accept intrusion by CPS, still have to check in with us, and it's going to continue as it is right now. That's option number two. Option number three, which is the worst of the worst, was they could say, we're taking him back. We're taking him back into our custody, and you can't have him anymore. That sounds incredibly unlikely, but the entire process from the beginning was unlikely. And so you never want to underestimate the enemy. Any one of those three things can happen, and we just need everybody. We covet your prayers. We're begging and asking you guys to continue to pray for baby Cyrus, and to pray for this family, and that we all can do anything that we can do to continue to fight against it. I'll say one last thing before you go to questions, and that is, as a result of this, it's been put on our heart to do something to educate other people, to ensure it doesn't happen to them, to ensure they know what to do to prevent this from happening to them. They know how they can get involved in a way so that they can also be activists, and that we can give them the details of this specific story, because it resonates with so many people. And so we're going to have a rally this Saturday at noon here in Emmett, Idaho, which is just outside of Boise. And Ammon happens, to live there. Most people know that already. And so we are going to have that there. Ammon's going to be speaking there. Sarah is going to be speaking there. I'll be sharing the details. And we also wanted the opportunity, Francesca, to give other people who've also gone through a similar horrible situation, who did not have the type of platform that we were fortunate to have. And their story hasn't been heard. People have heard baby Cyrus's story, but other people who have equally wicked stories. Their story hasn't been heard, and we want to give them a platform to speak. And so people are going to get a chance to hear from those people this Saturday at noon. You can go to our website, which is freedomman.org/Cyrus, freedomman.org/Cyrus, and the address and the details are there.
Amen. Thank you so much for that. And yes, guys, definitely do that. Also, anybody have any questions for Ammon, for Diego, or for Sarah or myself? Please post it now in the comment section. I'm actually focusing right on that right now. I do see one. I think this is kind of more of a general question we've all been asking. But Ann says, where is the oversight, the transparency, and the accountability? They don't have anything because they're policing themselves. Does anybody want to touch that one?
Well, I'll take on that one a little bit, Ammon. We have something that we call due process in this country. At least we used to, and we still believe in it. And that is where we do not allow one person to arbitrarily decide, our fate, whether we're put in jeopardy, whether our property is taken from us, and in particular, whether our families or members are taken from us. That is supposed to happen when the force of law is ever enacted. It's supposed to be done by the people, not by the government. And these courts, these family courts and these hearings and so forth just bypass the people. In fact, they have it privately where no one can even watch what's going on. And if we're going to have a chance at correcting these things, we have to make sure that a child's case in a hearing, and when the ultimate decision is made to take a child away, it's done through a jury by the people and not through some judge who, like in this case, has no kids, is almost 50 years old. I won't go on into detail about, who she really is, but and we allow that one person, the state gives the authority for that one person to take a child away. And we have to make sure that that does not continue. If we're ever going to have a chance to correct this and make it better, we have to make sure that no child is taken away, no property is taken away, no person is punished, and no enforcement of any law is done without the people's say first, and typically that's done through a jury.
That's right. And that's what I was saying too, exactly, because there are no jury trials for these families. And you tell the court, here's the thing too, you tell the court, you say to the court, I want a jury trial. And doesn't our laws clearly state that you have the right to waive a trial by jury? We are never given that right in this fake court. And that's part of the proof that they're not real. In 1962, the Family Court Act was put into place. Nobody voted for it. Hello, nobody voted for this. So their fake immunity that falls under their fake court system is fake too. You can't just have unchecked authority.
You made a good point earlier when you said it's easier for the state to take your child than it is for the state to take your TV. And that's absolutely true. It's easier for the state to take your most precious possession, love, your heart, everything that you have, your child, than it is for them to take, anything else, any other possession you have. And so, I mean, don't get me wrong. We're never going to get these people to stop doing what they're doing, because most of them are doing it for reasons that are completely intentional. But the way that we've always had in this country checks and balances, making sure that power is not arbitrarily held. And so if you're going to stop people from, having wicked intentions, especially on Christian families, and you're going to use the system to do that, then you've got to get it back into a jury system where the state doesn't have arbitrary power to do what they want to do.
Absolutely. And I think that they're so evil, they probably would put their own fake bots in there as juries. But I'm just saying, I have one final question. I don't know which of you want to answer it. They didn't direct it on anybody, but the question is from Sandra Jones. And she said, how did they determine the medical issues with the baby? That's probably more grandpa's, or who wants to answer that?
I'll take it if you want, Diego. I have been immersed in these medical records for the last week. I've been just studying and seeing exactly the timeline in which this has occurred, because I'm working on also with medicalkidnap.com, we're working on an article to help show this timeline and help show the truth of the situation for this young family. And this baby was born tongue-tied. And he had a frenectomy when he was 18 days old. And he did great after that. He was able to eat and digest and, was a happy, healthy, thriving baby until the family started having problems a few months ago. And it had to do with vomiting and constipation, which are both symptoms of tongue-tied and being tongue-tied and unable to swallow, and the gagging and the vomiting. And as you look through these medical records, you see every attempt that these parents have made to get him help and figure out what is going on, but nobody was thinking about, the tongue-tied or the frenectomy, because the doctor had told them it would be a while before he had to have it fixed again. But when you start looking at the medical records from St. Luke's Hospital, every single nurse points out he has a bowed tongue, he's having problems with gagging, he's having these digestive issues. And the issue that we have now is that the state isn't really focused on Cyrus's health. The family went to the doctor for help. The doctor called the state for help, thinking that was the right thing to do, because we're all, as mandated reporters, told that that's the right thing to do. We can get these parents help and services through the state. But what they don't realize is the corruption that they're throwing them into. Then CPS just bounces on it and grabs hold and runs with it, saying that they're horrible parents, they're not feeding their child, but they're not actually looking at the medical issues of this child. And I believe that the parents feel that this still has to do with him having the tongue tie issue, and they want to get him into the right doctors, but now you've got the CPS saying that they're the third parent, which stems from a medieval law that was created to protect orphans and vulnerable adults, so that the king in England and the king's court could take authority and guardianship over those people. And that's where the parent of the nation comes into play, the parens patriae. And so the state feels that they are the third parent and the one who needs to make all these decisions. Now, these parents are lucky because this safety plan has an expiration date. Most safety plans don't have an expiration date. They're just ongoing. Work with the department, do the services, put the apartment into your home, let them just take control and be that third parent. But these parents have had attorneys who help put an end date on that. So no matter what happens, that safety plan ends on April 8th. And then if the case is dismissed on April 8th, they just need to go away. If they didn't have the kind of publicity that they have in every other case, we know what would happen on the 30th because of the corruption in these judges and in these cases. And I'm just going to point out one more time, it is that publicity that helps to shield these families from that corruption.
I agree. Well, I want to thank everyone again. God bless each and every one of you for being here today. Guys, if you need help, in the description of either place that you view this on, whether it be Punished for Protecting News, whether it be CPS News Network, or, which we thank, CPS News Network, and also whether it be my YouTube channel, please like, share, and subscribe, and also hit the bell icon so you don't miss these amazing broadcasts. We also can take your stories as well, and there's a whole process for that. If you can go to the link, you'll see where there's Book a Talk. Also, remember, we handle very convoluted cases. They're all convoluted cases. By the time we get them, they're out to lunch without a restaurant. Okay, so sign up and start the process. I want to thank my wonderful guests today, Serra Frank, Ammon Bundy, and Deigo Rodrigues, the grandfather of little Cyrus. God, thank you so much, God, for bringing these people together. Thank you for protecting little Cyrus. We are so blessed that you have stepped in and intervened. Thank you for continuing to intervene and bring more and more of our brothers and sisters together to fight the good fight in Jesus' name. So we thank you all for watching. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you for all the love and support that I see on the chat. For this family and for everyone here that is fighting so hard, laying their lives down to fight. If you live in Idaho, vote for Mr. Bundy here. That's who I'd be voting for. If you're in New York, vote for Derek Gibson, because these are the people that are going to do what we need to do, that are just human beings doing human. Okay. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful night. God bless everybody.
Thank you, Fran.
Thanks.
Thank you.